Welcome on into 19 on the Clock, your Tri-State high school and college sports podcast. I'm your host, Brad Pushkar. Joining me, as always, is my co-host, Jackson McCarty. Jackson, how are we doing today?
I'm doing good, man.
Yeah.
It's hard to complain. I know I spent like a month talking about how sad I was going to be when football ends.
Yes.
Right? But
yes, you did.
We have that silver lining with basketball. Now we have 2 weeks remaining in the regular season, for Ohio at least.
Yeah.
And which means I've probably got like 6 more weeks of shooting games. And that is a way scarier drop-off point than football is. And I hadn't even really, I was being very selfish in the moment. But we're so much farther away from football again.
Yes. That I mean this so honestly that every time you're like, oh, well, football's over, like, yeah, but at least we have basketball. When basketball over, we have some spring sports. When those spring sports are done, we are gonna have to figure out what we're doing here.
Yeah, it's gonna, I mean, there's anything from hiatus to just finding random things to do.
Oh, we'll do previews.
There's a whole number of really interesting options for us.
Yeah.
But,
well, fun.
Yeah, it's gonna get a little sideways. And if you thought we struggled with those high school basketball previews and setting up the format of that, just you wait. Because the summer is going to be a wild time.
We'll have even better previews of games months in advance. That's exactly what's going to happen.
Oh, yeah. We'll be talking about Week 7 in the GCL South in, like, June.
We're just going to be talking about NIL for 2 months, and everybody's going to love it, I'm sure.
And what it means to LeBron's legacy. That's usually the go-to, right, during the offseason?
Hey, let's not talk about the Lakers right now. I'm still hurting.
Hey, you and me both, brother.
But, yeah, and, today is also, as of recording, National Girls and Women in Sports Day.
Yes.
I almost slipped it again. And so to celebrate a little bit, we're going to talk about exactly what we kind of talked about last week.
Yep.
But our listeners didn't get to hear it because our mics had major errors and I had to cut that entire part out. So if it did seem like if it seemed weird that we only went 20 minutes last week, no, we're not getting more concise.
No.
We just had to make major cuts.
We're still rambling. We just, the technology kind of went sideways on us.
But we got that fixed.
Yes.
And that's what's important. And speaking of fixing things, doesn't actually segue into the team that I'm going to talk about.
Nothing.
But, we're going to talk about some of the women's college teams that are been playing right now.
A kind of a follow-up to what you guys got to listen to 2 weeks ago now.
Yes. We talked about the men's side. I want to talk about especially our local teams, but also some teams in the general area that I know people are going to be fans of that likely watch or that live in Cincinnati area and talk about the success that those schools are having as well.
Yeah.
But we'll start off, we'll talk about UC, sticking right here in the Queen City. The women's team right now is 13-7.
Okay.
5-5. Since you and I talked last week, they did lose a game to Baylor. But the other losses right now include TCU, who was I think number 11 at the time, Kansas State number 13 at the time, and then Oklahoma State, not ranked but has been ranked in the last couple weeks, and Arizona.
Okay.
And so those are the Big 12. Big 12 losses.
If you're going to have losses on the resume, that's a pretty good lineup.
Yes. They're 4 games back from first right now, which actually isn't that crazy.
Right.
And then they're going to be playing Iowa State tonight. I wanted to give the shout out to Jillian Hayes because she's been the big performer for the team right now. 16.5 points per game. That's up a little bit. As well.
Just a touch.
And 9.6 rebounds per game. Almost getting a double-double per game is great.
Especially at the collegiate level, because usually these teams kind of ride the strength of a player that they think will go to the league, or or at least kind of continue their basketball career, be it overseas or what have you.
Yes.
And those role players are kind of become interchangeable in college, I feel like. It's kind of more of a hot hand situation, matchup situation.
For sure.
So to have somebody like Jillian Hayes, who not only is getting those buckets for you, but is also pulling down about 10 boards a night, irreplaceable. Yes,
and I think that's always been, that's always one of those big, strong suits for the college game is the rebounder and inside point scorer.
Right. Well, because everybody's learning how to shoot threes now.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Especially at a young age.
Absolutely.
We delivered a half of a sermon on that maybe a month ago now, on kind of how that's kind of changed and shaped a lot of these programs and a lot of these athletes. So, like if you can find somebody who's still willing to get down in the paint and do the dirty work, that handles your job a lot as a coach.
Yes. And complimenting her as well is guard Tania Hilton, 13.6 points per game, getting 2 steals a game as well.
Very impressive.
Which I was like, that's good.
Yeah.
Knock those balls out.
No matter which way you cut it, I mean, you take that number every single time.
Yeah. And so I still am kind of of the opinion that I think UC women could maybe sneak into the NCAA tournament.
Entirely possible.
Possible. Again, it's not like one that I'm like, it's guaranteed. At the minimum, it's WNIT.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and if you can stay below 9 losses, or if you can get at or below 9 losses with the remaining schedule, I think you're sitting pretty good for a tournament run.
I think if you can be below, I think if you can only lose 2 more games, is best.
Right. Once you get into double digits, it becomes such a hairy situation.
Yeah, because I want to almost say there's only 6 or 7 games left.
Yeah, sounds right.
Which is why that's the only reason why I'm saying, well, if you get 9, like you're technically sub 500 in conference.
Yeah.
And stuff like that, and that's why I was like, keep it to the 2. But yes, I do think you're right that like around that area is going to be where you're going to find success.
Yes.
So we'll move over across the city, across town. Xavier, 6-16 right now, 1-10 in the Big East, playing Georgetown tonight. Again, that's Wednesday night. So by the time you're listening to this,
you guys will know how that one fared.
That game will have finished. Only win in the Big East right now is a win over Butler. We kind of talked about this where one player is averaging double digits. Mary Canerva, that's 10.4 points per game. Guard, also given 3.2 assists per game. Lauren Christie the forward has been kind of the best in the paint.
Okay.
4.7 rebounds per game, and a little over 1.5 blocks per game.
Okay.
Which I think is solid.
A couple pieces that you can definitely use, especially as the team grows together and kind of starts to figure out their way. Obviously, not the way the season, but didn't want it to go this way.
For sure.
But it does sound like they do need that primary takeover scorer, and that could change a lot of things for them. Whether or not they'll find it, it's kind of a work in progress, obviously.
Yeah, this kind of feels like a season where it's see what you can do in the off season from here. If it's transfer portal, if it's bringing in recruits. I haven't really looked at that class too closely. But as always, it's tough to play basketball in the Big East.
Yeah, of course.
No matter what.
Right.
Obviously UConn still leading and kind of blowing everybody out at this point, where they're looking more towards the tournament and playing SEC schools and seeing what can happen from there.
Naturally.
But yeah, it's just tough year for Xavier.
It happens.
It happens, and hopefully they can kind of figure things out moving forward from there.
And now I don't remember if this was last week's or the week prior, but I know we talked a lot about schools that are not P5, which I know basketball is like the Big East is obviously up there. But
yes.
How difficult it can be on the ones that aren't in that upper echelon with the portal, and you almost kind of get that year to recollect yourself and then make your run, and then you lose talent, and it just kind of cycles. Hopefully that's what Xavier's going through right now, and that upturn comes in about 12 months. Yeah,
and I mean, I think this, as much as we always talk about transfer portal stuff with like player, like from the player point of view, mm-hmm. It's also kind of on the coaches to understand how to use it well.
100%.
In response to it being used against them.
Oh yeah. Well, you got to be a salesman.
Yeah, because I'll bring up Purdue for a second, which the Purdue volleyball team lost 4 players to the transfer portal. Mm-hmm. 2 went to Kentucky, 1 went to Louisville.
Okay.
Louisville.
Yeah. All nearby programs.
All nearby. Louisville won the championship. Mm-hmm. Kentucky was in the it was in the Elite 8, I believe. Again, like top programs, things like that. But the Purdue program is also arguably a top program. But when you have those players moving, there was this kind of immediate concern I saw online of people being like, oh, well, does this mean like the coach is retiring? Does this mean that there's something wrong with the culture or whatever?
Or the NIL bucket.
Is it NIL that is just pulling them down there? And I think it was like 2 days after he posted a video. It was kind of like, hey, that was crazy, wasn't it? But he's talking about like, I found out these players wanted to leave. They left, and we were able to pick up replacements from solid programs across the country.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that you have to do. It can't just be, oh, woe is me, the transfer portal is being used. It's, I'm going to get in there and I'm going to find players that can fill the roles that I still need.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and it's like on basketball rosters,
yes.
For example, let's say you've got your 15 kids. Willing to bet that probably half of them, if they entered the portal, would find a more appealing pitch than what they're currently getting at your program. The important thing is to incentivize them with everything else around it.
Yes.
To keep that to where it's like, maybe I could find a better fit for me basketball-wise or location-wise or financially or whatever it is. But you have to create that, like you said, culture, and that, hey, I know X, Y, and Z might not be 1A on your list, but these people kind of outweigh that. And our goal outweighs that.
This team has a goal.
Right. Here's where we want to be in the next 24 months. Do you think you can help us with that?
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it's on Xavier to utilize that and get some more folks in there that can help the athletes that are trying to keep the Musketeers kind of in the thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so another team will move over across the river to NKU.
Yep.
8-16, had a tough non-conference schedule. I'm not going to put that against them. 5-8 in the Horizon League though, playing IU Indy on Saturday.
Okay.
They're sitting about middle of the pack in the Horizon. Purdue, I kind of mentioned this. Purdue Fort Wayne has been undefeated so far this year. Has been very impressive. I'm from Fort Wayne, so I still follow a lot of the news stations there, and they've been picking up a lot of stories of like, there's a player that is a mother and balancing that in school and basketball and how that all goes together. And I'm like, that's really awesome. But with the Norse, you get two guards who have been playing very well. Macy Blevins, averaging 12.3 points per game, has been the go-to scorer. But you also have Hallie Adowu, who's getting 12.1 points per game, but also grabbing almost 6 rebounds a game as well.
There you go.
So two guards, and if you want to play a little bit more of a small ball, I think that's a good option to have two good scorers like that.
Especially when you're getting numbers off the glass like that from a guard.
Yes.
Like that takes a lot of the pressure off to do that typical 2-guard, 2-forward, a center type format. You can expand that a little bit.
And it's harder to watch their games if you can't get to the stadium sometimes.
Right.
And so, having not watched it, but kind of doing my little bit of reading, it's like that's an aggressive player as well. Like that's an aggressive guard that I like to see.
Yes.
I'm going to go after those rebounds. I'm going to grab those boards when they're able.
I know this is a weird comp.
Go ahead.
Admittedly, Tavon Austin, or no, not Tavon Austin, Miles Austin, the old Cowboys receiver. It always used to impress me because my dad's a Cowboys fan.
Yeah.
I fortunately escaped that, but it always impressed me when I would watch when I was younger because he never waited for the ball to come to him. He would always meet the ball at the catch point, get out in front of his corners, be the first one on the ball so he can be the first one to make a play. That's kind of that same mentality that this sounds like you're describing.
Yes, and I mean that's basketball. I again grew up in Indiana,
of course.
So I went to basketball camps for the longest time when I was growing up. It just took me until middle school to finally realize, I'm too tiny and too skinny to really do this. At the time, I was too skinny. I should add.
Stop.
But that was always the biggest thing was that it was never. It's never about just standing in the spots that you're supposed to be on the court and just following the play. It's anticipating the ball and anticipating where you need to be in order to make a play on it. It's kind of like I would always argue that the best Steelers in the league are the guys who can go, okay, he's dribbling up with his right hand. Or actually, this is my crazy comparison. Like when you're playing 2K sometimes, and you're like, oh, he's coming up on with the right hand. I'm just gonna slide through and like swipe, grab it, and go dunk it.
Because you know the animation's gonna fall your way.
Exactly, and so it's learning the animations, but just in real life.
Yeah, exactly. Except for with a real application to it, and not just my thumbs.
Yes, and so but yeah, it's getting out there and going, oh, here's a free ball, let's grab it.
Yeah.
So
creating a window, don't wait for a window.
Exactly. But yeah, so again, NKU, like Xavier, I don't expect to see in the tournament this year. It's probably just going to be a hard year to win the Horizon at this point.
Yeah.
But also, you could always see something shake up in the tournament that makes those things fun.
We've seen
not the tournament, but the conference championships and things like that.
Yeah, so we've seen crazier stuff kind of fall out. It's not totally out of the realm, but you're probably looking more towards what happens next year.
And so we'll move over to another group of 5, MAC, Miami, 12-8, 5-5 in the MAC, playing Eastern Michigan tonight.
Okay.
They're 5 games back from first. Ball State is leading. They are undefeated in the MAC. I know that we have a few Ball State grads that have gone either worked here or that were coworkers with us. So chirp.
I did not realize you were also going to do it. I know I didn't do the hand.
I think that's it.
It's something.
I don't know. They always did it, and I picked it up. But
the only 2 Ball State grads that I can immediately think of do not work here anymore, so I'm not real worried about it.
That's fair. Yeah. But you guard for the Red Hawks. Guard Angelina Gonzalez, 17.2 points per game. If I'm not mistaken, she's the second highest on my list. Yes, she is the second highest. And I'll
take that.
Add in that includes 2 teams that are currently in like the top 10 right now.
Right, 2 teams that they've got bigger eyes right now.
But 17.2 and 48.4 clip.
Oof.
So
take that every day of the week. That's a
almost
player.
every other shot goes in. I'll take that.
Yeah, that's your star player. That's the person you set everything up around.
Yes, and then you've got Amber Treader grabbing about 8 boards a game.
Perfect.
Also putting up a little over 10 points. So exactly what you would want.
And that's just a happy bonus to that point. If she's doing that much damage on the glass, that is my primary for you. You are my Rodman. You are my
exactly.
Just you getting over double-digit points, just icing on the cake.
Yes. Yes. You can let Angelina take the 3-ball, take the mid-range jumpers, whatever. Amber's gonna set up, grab the board, put it back in if you need to. So.
Yep. Like clockwork, man.
But yeah, so I actually think the MAC could get shaken up a little bit more still, depending on what Ball State. If Ball State's able to really hold on to that, that'll be fun. But I'm always that kind of person that just loves to see an undefeated team for some reason.
So, I got a couple for you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Good.
Yeah, we didn't even.
Good little teaser there.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll talk about those in a minute. We'll move on to one team that is almost undefeated. Ohio State, number 8 in the nation.
Yep.
20-1.
They're just really good at all sports.
That's not men's.
Fair.
to be fair.
But they find a way in most categories to do something. Absolutely.
Well, and again, the story that I've told you, but our listeners haven't heard, it was the 2017 women's basketball season tournament, 2016-2017, that Purdue was playing in the Big Ten championship and ended up, I can never remember if it was they beat Ohio State and then lost to Maryland, or beat Maryland and then lost to Ohio State. I think it's beat Ohio State, lost to Maryland.
Yeah.
But way back, back then everybody was expecting a Maryland-Ohio State finals in the Big Ten tournament.
Yeah.
And then, and so, but that was just one of those really fun experiences for me growing up, or in college, I should say, not really growing up.
You're still growing up.
Of getting to cover a tournament in Cambridge at the time, and so getting down in Indy, because I think the men's team was in, or the men's games were in Madison Square Garden that year.
Probably.
That was like the first year they started spreading them out to appease Rutgers and Maryland's fans. But yeah, Ohio State 20-1, 9-1, starting a back-to-back UCLA, USC. UCLA is number 1 in the Big Ten. They are completely undefeated.
Yes.
USC is also 9-1 with Ohio State.
That's tough.
9-1 and 20-1, I should say.
Running the gauntlet.
So they'll play UCLA tonight, Buckeyes will, and then they'll play USC on Saturday.
Okay.
So again, tough games. This is also where you just need to prove yourself.
Right. Well, you're going to play teams at this quality, or maybe even a little higher in the tournament.
Yes.
You've got to be prepared for that.
And you're likely going to have to face at least one, if not both, these teams in the Big Ten tournament.
Right.
Things like that as well. But Cody McMahon, 16.5 points per game. Asia Petty, 10 points per game, but 7 rebounds a game.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jelani Cambridge, 14.6 points per game, just about 4 assists a game. So you are kind of using 2 forwards to get a lot of your points, but you also have guard out there scoring, dishing it in to them, things like that.
Well, in college basketball, I don't think is as radicalized to three ball only.
Oh, absolutely
so,
not. Yeah.
And even less so like on the women's side. So,
because that's the thing, at this point, we look back at the Caitlin Clark years with Iowa.
Right.
And as much as it was just her taking moonshots from half court for no reason, wherever she wanted, whatever logo she wanted to go stand at, she also was feeding her players. Like she was feeding Gabby Marsh, she was feeding Kate Martin. Like she's finding players in the paint that are open to take the easier shots when she knew she wasn't going to be able to.
Yeah.
And that's still the most important thing to understand as a player is when you need to give up the ball.
Yeah, so where are my windows again to bring that? Like, how often do I need to just be the one pulling the trigger on this?
Yes.
And where are the windows where it's like, oh, hey, they're not even paying attention down low right now.
Exactly.
I'm just going to lob this in there and see what happens.
Yes. So yeah, I think those will be 2 fun games to watch, that Ohio State with UCLA and USC. And I think it'll kind of be a little bit of a tell for what's going to really happen with the tournament this year.
Yeah, well, yeah, especially depending on how close those games are. Like even like let's say Ohio State, things go sideways for them, they end up 0-2. If you have a combined 15-point differential in those 2 games, I think you still can be pretty confident that you're going to be able to make some noise in the tournament.
Yes, I think even like 18. I think 18 and under. Yeah, is a good differential type thing. So. Yeah. And we'll touch lastly, number 11, UK Wildcats, 19-2. 8-1. They have a loss to North Carolina, and I can't remember the ACC team that they lost to because I didn't write it down. But they do play Ole Miss on Monday.
Okay.
So they're like the only team that's basically not playing for 5 days at this point.
Yeah, they've got a little bit of a window to breathe.
They did just beat a ranked Alabama and a ranked Oklahoma in their last 2 games.
Okay.
Georgia Moore is the scoring leader for the team and is the scoring leader of all of these players that I'm listing off. Yep. 19.4 points per game.
Boom.
7.5 assists a game.
Yep.
Run the offense through her. Great. Yep. Senior Claire.
What do you figure her usage rate is?
Senior.
Like 50? It's probably really high.
It's got to be. If I'm not mistaken, she's like 33, 34 minutes a game at a minimum.
Then yeah, well, that'll actually help bring it down a little.
Yeah.
But either way, sorry, that was just a random thought.
But center, Clara Streck, center, not senior, 15.5 points per game, 9.6 rebounds a game, 2.3 blocks a game too. And she was one of the only ones to get over 2 blocks per game from my stats that I was looking at.
Very well equipped roster there. You're going to be hard pressed to find too many spots where one of those 2 can't take.
It's such a nice balance to have. Yeah. And so if you're a Buckeye, if you're a Wildcat, congratulations, enjoy the tournament this year.
Your basketball season is going to be a lot longer than most of ours.
Yeah, you're going to be stretching it out into March. But yeah, and that's kind of just a little look at where the women's teams are sitting right now. I think this is going to be another fun year. I think there is a lot more parity across all the teams in college and women's college basketball right now. And you kind of will have a little bit of a shakeup no matter what. The SEC seems like a front runner of, you could pick like one of 4 teams to probably make a deep run.
Yeah.
But you don't really know for sure, except like South Carolina. South Carolina is pretty guaranteed at this point.
It's pretty much a shoe-in, yeah.
And that's what we were talking about earlier with culture and what Don Staley is doing there. And you gotta give ups to that. So.
Oh yeah, all the props in the world.
Yes.
Possible, and there's a lot of good stuff, like you said, going on with a lot of the programs in the region. It's just a matter of this year, next year. How do we find that balance?
Exactly. So.
Yeah. So.
Good time to lock in for that. And another good time to lock in is for some undefeated teams in high school basketball. You got a boys and girls team to talk about.
I do.
Who have just not been unstoppable right now.
Yes. I want to talk a little bit about maintaining perfection. And to give you all a quick look into the process of this podcast, I realized that by the time we had finished all the high school coverage and like previews and what you needed to know before tournament time, we had about 2 weeks left of regular season play. So I figured instead of diving into those games for a lot of the teams that we have already briefly discussed, I wanted to do full deep dives on the 2 teams that still have a 0 next to outside in the loss column.
Yes.
And 2 teams that have just been on fire, like you said. So let's start with Aiken.
Yes, and I enjoyed that you put this little note in your notes that you sent me last night of this one was outside of our who should Brad pick to make a deep run
That's
in.
Witten.
Oh, was it? Yes. I did pick Aiken. You're right.
Aiken. You picked Aiken's boys and their girls.
Good job, me.
You doubled down on the Falcons, and the boys pick is going swimmingly for you right now.
Hey,
you
know me. Double down and win.
I guess I should say you should be, I don't know, flying with your pick or something. They're a bird, not a water creature. But
True.
Sorry. But okay, currently they're 19-0.
Yes.
Just got a 20-point win over Western Hills, I believe, last night.
Okay.
Might have to cross-check me, but I know it's a team that starts with a W. They're led by head coach Daryl Black, who I wanted to mention him because before we dive into what is essentially me looking at the numbers from last year to this year to see kind of what's changed with this team, what's making this success all the much more fruitful, I guess, I wanted to give some quick credit to Reagan Holgate, who kind of inspired this a little bit. She recently did a story with the Aiken Falcons talking to Coach Black about what's just been going on with this program. So if you haven't watched that, you can find it on her social media. You can find it on our YouTube channel, on our website. I strongly encourage you to check that out. But okay, let's dive in here first with a quick look at what happened with them last year. So they finished 16-7. They lost their postseason opener at Oak Hills. They scored about 67 points per game, allowed about 60, shot just under 32% from 3, and then made just over 60% of their free throws. So some kind of shaky numbers in there.
Yeah.
An upsetting loss to start the playoffs because especially they had won their conference, last year, and there was some momentum there. It just kind of the wheels came off.
Sure.
So relative to this year, it's kind of interesting to me because some of those numbers really haven't changed that much, and we'll talk about why I do think the success is more apparent this year despite those lack of changes. Already mentioned 19-0. The big difference is right now 79.8 points per game. I mean, that's a 12-point jump.
Big jump, yeah.
Right, that's massive. And then they're also allowing about 5 points less per game. So that window already got wide, got a lot wider.
Yeah, grew by 17 basically.
Right, they're winning games by 24 points. Last time they were winning games by 7.
Yeah.
So yeah, you 17 points right on the money.
Harder to make a comeback when you're up by 15 than if you're up by 5.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. The resume is so. This has been a talking point for the Falcons. People have kind of questioned their resume, have kind of questioned their schedule. At certain points, they do have some good wins on here. Lakota East by 19. Trey Perry is a player that I think you would struggle to find more than 4 or 5 players that are even kind of on that same tier as him.
Yes.
Out in this region. They beat them by 19.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they beat Taft, who is another phenomenal CMAC school, by 23. And Taft will get another chance to play them. I believe that is their Friday game. Taft and Aiken, the rematch. They have a win over Woodford County by 2. They've got a win over Walton Verona by 18. And then, like I mentioned, they've got another one against Taft, and then a tough team in Trotwood to close their schedule out. I would argue that 2 of their probably 4 hardest games on the schedule are in the last 3 weeks.
So it's a little bit of later testing to prove you are legit at this point.
100%. You've got to, because Taft is not an easy team to beat twice, or they're not an easy team to beat once, let alone twice.
Yeah.
So you've got to defend that win, and then you've got to play Trotwood, who has very much held their own throughout their schedule. So those are going to be interesting jumping off points right into the playoffs and kind of getting everything sorted. I think that's going to tell us a lot about the Falcons, and if they finish this regular season undefeated, it will be a real testament at that point to how quality this roster's been. So here are some more numbers about the team that have kind of piqued my interest as to what changed here. So their 3-point percentage isn't even a full percentage up. It's 32.4.
Okay. So
they haven't made a full percentage jump there. They're only making 5.5 of those per game, so they're really not a 3-point shooting team regardless.
Yeah.
And then they're still only making about 68.9% of their free throws.
A little better, but yeah, still. I'm always you want to get to like the 80s for free throw guy.
I think as a team, 70 is my magic number to where I'm like, I can take it.
Sure.
Anything above that, you're playing with house money.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they're not at that 70 mark. Their 3-point balls are still really not that crazy of a percentage. They're really not making that many as a team. So what is it that's so different? I think number one would be the culture. Coach Black only got there a couple years ago, and he has really sold those young men on this is what we want to be. If you guys play tight and make all of this work, we're going to be just fine.
Okay.
And they believe it. This is an unprecedented season for the Falcons. It's been, I think, it's since the '60s since a CMAC team has been off to this good of a start. It's
And you talk about the coach. As you said, he's only been there a couple of years. It takes time, especially if with a high school, you have 4 years of guys. You're really 3 years of guys that you just need to kind of rotate out.
Right.
Not necessarily saying that the last, the sophomore, junior, senior classes that he's had may have been
talent or
anything like that. But there is a. I had a band director change in high school, and that was in the middle of my career. So I had junior, senior, different band director, and I had to adjust to. There were things I liked about him for different reasons, things I didn't like for other reasons, compared to the old one, and that's just something that you're going to deal with when leadership changes like that. And so I think when you get those guys that are fresh, moldable, they're going to buy in. They're going to work with you on how you want to run the team, and then even if it is that it's a senior year of those sophomores that had a year under the old coach.
Right.
They go, oh no, we can work around. We understand where we fit in now and what this goal is.
Well, and I think a lot of times in any sport, when you get a new coach, you hear a lot about setting up the culture. It's going to take a year or two to do that. Yeah. That doesn't inherently mean different talent. That just means you are teaching the talent that you choose to have on your team how you want things done.
And them being willing to learn it.
Exactly.
As well. Yes.
Exactly. It's a very give and take process, and I'm not going to even go as far to say that this Aiken team is more or less talented than the team he started with. It's just that they're all on the same page and they figured it out.
They know the system that works for them.
Exactly.
Yes.
So yeah, I would say the culture is a massive part of that. Obviously, with the lack of real differences besides points per game, points allowed, and a lot of that even can still be chalked up to Antoine Hinton, who wasn't with the team last year. He's averaging 10.3 points per game. So that swing, it's only 12.
Yeah, that's hey, there he is.
There's your points. But also it speaks a lot of volume to what this defense is now doing, because when the offense scores that many points, the other team's getting more chances. So that defense has taken a step up, even if the points allowed per game aren't showing it, just because the percentage of chances and the volume that the other team is getting inherently has to be more. So that would be the big one, and then I kind of hate to even include this point, but luck is absolutely a factor.
Sure.
But every good team in the history of ever has also been a lucky team.
Yes, absolutely.
That's you don't get to run around and throw a ball into a basket or playing football or baseball or anything like that and not inherently it be a little lucky that some shots aren't falling or they are falling or whatever happens.
That players don't get injured. Yeah. Certain players on other teams do get injured.
Scheduling.
Things like that. Scheduling happens.
Yeah.
Who you have to face. All luck, yes.
Right.
All outside of your actual control sometimes.
Exactly. Aiken is a very lucky team. That does not mean I don't think they're good. I think that they're absolutely worthwhile and worthy of being these conference champions, and they have absolutely earned their right to be undefeated at this point. But the luck has absolutely been a factor. And if it continues into the tournament, they could be hoisting the whole thing. It's entirely possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, those would be the two things that I point to, at least with Aiken, as to why I think this run has managed to stick around as long as it has.
We did talk about those things coming up, or those games coming up. What's your hope or belief that they will be able to hold on for a completely undefeated season?
I would really like to see them use that 3-ball a little bit more right before tournament, even if they don't plan on becoming, and because it's so hard at this point in the season to be like, we're going to shift our identity a little bit. We're going to be a 3-point shooting team now. And I don't want that from them. I don't want them to mess with the formula, but it would be nice to see 8 or 9 of those shots falling down as a team just to make other tournament teams be like, maybe there is a little bit more there.
Okay.
I think because part of the luck is setting up decoys and hoping other coaches bite, focus on that, work your real game plan in. If you can start to convince people that, hey, around tournament time, we know we're going to need these extra points, we're shooting more behind the arc, better watch out, they keep that defense out there, you're drawing inside still, that works out well for you. But then teams are still scared of that 3-ball. So if you could establish a little bit more of that in these last couple games and in the start of the playoffs, that's where the magic is for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then I think that'll be interesting to see what happens with them, and definitely is a team to keep the eye on Friday nights, and another team to keep your eye on the girls' side, the team that I didn't pick.
Yes. Well.
That you didn't give me the option to even pick.
ECC was the first week that we did, and so we didn't preview any of these teams. We just did players.
Yes.
There was a magical 1-week period where I think it was the ECC and the MVC were the two, because I don't remember talking about Lakota East, but I remember spending a lot of time on Trey Perry.
Correct.
But the Winton Woods Warriors girls basketball team, they're 20-0 with 2 to go. And I spent a lot of time talking about how the numbers did not really change for Aiken, but something else mentally did. The numbers changed here.
Yeah.
Big time.
Okay.
All right, so to set you up a little bit with what was happening last year, I did actually want to mention this beforehand. Their last game was on Monday. They beat Kings 66-14. Just a fun tidbit. Because that's scary.
That took me a second to actually understand.
Yeah, that's a 52-point differential.
Yeah.
Barely got into the teens.
Jeez.
That's how good of a team we're dealing with here. To set you up from last year, finished the year 20-6, lost to Springboro in the district finals. They had 4 losses within single digits, 4 of the 6, 9 or less. Which I know that's not as big of a deal in basketball, worth mentioning with those free throws and garbage time and what have you. Had about 53.3 points per game, allowed about 38, almost 38% from field goal and 25% from 3. Not great numbers. It was a defensive heavy team that found their buckets, usually in the paint, a lot of times on second chance points.
Sure.
How it all unfolded. This year, they have 4 wins separated by fewer than 10. All the rest of them are 10 points or more. A lot of them are 20
points or
more.
more. Yeah.
A ton of them.
And a couple of them are 40 points or more.
50. They got 50 on there, man. They're winning games by a lot.
Yeah.
More often than they're not. Their points per game only jumps up by about 6. They're at 59.9, so we'll round up, call it 60. They allow 2 points less, so they're about at 36 now.
Okay.
Here's where things get different. 44.7 from the field as a team.
this year.
Yes. Okay. So that's a 44.7 to 37.9, so about a 7 point.
7 point, yeah.
Their 3-point percentage has gone up 8.1%. They're now 33.2 as a team.
Much better.
Giant jump. That right there is where your bread gets buttered.
Well, and that's not like a crazy 3-point percentage,
no.
But to get there after being in the 20s is a difference maker.
And without losing your defensive identity.
Yes.
Because that is what Winton was last year. And when they had a very respectable season, district finals is nothing to scoff at. But you need a little more than that, and you need more offensive consistency if you want to make the big thing.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to have the parade route, it takes a little bit of everything. So the verdict here as to what changed, obviously those numbers, but I want to focus more specifically on the players. Denia Trammell was their leading scorer last year and this year. Mm-hmm. She's taken a step back in the scoring. She was at 16. She's now at 14 in the ballpark at least. And she's taken a little bit of a step back on boards because she has more folks around her helping to fill that out. Last year, 2 people averaged more than 7. It was Denia and then Whitley Davis. This year, 2 more join them. Forewarning, I apologize if I mess up your last name. Strawberry Blacumsey is what I'm going with there. And then Rakaya Prince also joins her. So 2 more people, I believe it was like 14, 12, 9, and 7. Makes a giant difference from 16 and 7.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, pretty attributable to the differences being made there. And then also I want to attribute the experience part of it goes along with the players. A lot of these folks are returning from last year. Chemistry naturally develops over time, just how it goes.
Of course.
They've spent a lot of time together. They've spent some playoff time together. They know where they want to get. They know how to get there. They've seen the blueprint. Now it's just a matter of putting it together, and you'd be hard-pressed to find very many teams that have done that at a more successful clip than Winton Woods. Okay.
And you said 2 games left.
Yep.
I'll ask you the same thing I asked with Aiken.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think they can keep it up for 22-0?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Matter of fact, I would go as far to say that I would be shocked if they didn't finish 22-0.
Okay.
Or 23-0 or whatever, wherever it ends. The big thing, kind of similar, I would just like to see those field goal and 3-point percentages keep going up.
Sure.
You know, don't take any goofy shots because you've kind of proven at this point that you don't have to.
Yeah.
You know,
take the accurate shot.
Yep. Work inside. Work inside if that's your best bet, or leave that, or get somebody wide open out there and work it that way. Mm-hmm. Just keep proving to people that the offense, not only is it still a work in progress, but it's a good work in progress. It just continues to evolve.
Absolutely. So, okay. Well, those will be fun teams to keep track of. Keep an eye on it, especially heading into playoffs in a couple weeks.
Certainly not the last time you'll hear about either one of those.
Of course not. And who would want to not?
Yeah, of course.
Like I said, I like an undefeated team. So if they want to keep it up, let's keep it up. But yeah, that's all we've got for this week.
Yeah.
Again, happy Girls and Women's Sports Day. Support, women's sports, girls' sports. The men's games are just as good or the women's games are just as good as the men's, and vice versa.
If you hop on whatever streaming platforms you may have that broadcast sports, find you a women's basketball or a women's volleyball game on tonight.
You won't find women's volleyball, but yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I'm used
actually, there's pro women's volleyball going on right now. Because we do the Indy Ignite and the Columbus Fury. Well, heck, you can watch the Columbus Fury on 19.3 as well.
Better. Yeah, avoid the streaming services. Just go to our thing.
Yes. Our rock entertainment.
No, that's the sports.
Yeah.
But it is done through the rock.
It's done through the rock on 19.3.
Which is what, H&I?
Something like that.
Something. Sorry.
We work here.
You guys know what it is.
I swear.
We'll figure it out. Maybe next episode.
But yeah, so that is all we have for this week. Remember, as always, you can listen to us wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple Music, or Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, all those. We're also on the Fox 19 Now website and app, as well as YouTube.
Yeah.
And there are all easy ways to watch or listen, however you best like to take into your podcast. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you guys next week.
Have a good one.